What's going on, friends? Welcome to the Huddle Wisdom Podcast. My name is Davin. I'm a child forensic psychiatrist. I'm a dad. On this podcast, I share mental models that helps parents, educators, other mental health professionals to navigate the chaos of life and life with raising kids, especially those who have emotional difficulties and struggle with anxiety. Especially if you have anxiety yourself, having mental models that make it easier for you to navigate unpredictability. It just makes it a lot less stressful. We all have finite resources in order to cope with what life throws at us, and having a sound suite of mental models helps us to get through, to connect better, and just to survive a bit longer and hopefully to thrive. That was a really long winded way of saying um, welcome, and I hope the stuff I share with you today helps you to prepare for life's challenges because we cannot predict what's ahead, but we can certainly prepare. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about um, how we can make sense of anxious children when they exhibit so called misbehavior or challenging behavior. These are unfortunate sort of terms because they connote a negative vibe. We know that kids who are anxious, or kids in general, when they act out, in inverted commas, they do so because that's just what they naturally do in response to some sort of friction or mismatch between their capacity to deal with something in the environment, like a pressure, demand, or expectation being placed upon them. And so the behavior that they exhibit is a result or a consequence of there having been some kind of friction and tension which they could not resolve themselves. So I hope that clears up some stuff for you guys when I use the term misbehavior. That's what I'm referring to: the signal actions that result from frictional forces or an incompatibility between a child's skill level and the environment, and pressures or demands from the environment. So this is what I'm going to refer to as misbehavior or challenging behavior. And it's important that I clarify this because it can be quite misleading when I use those terms, because the last thing I want to do is to place the blame on the child. So I hope that that makes sense to you. In reality, as I said before, these sorts of behaviors, um, they they are annoying. No doubt about that. They are not easy to deal with, especially if they happen frequently and with high intensity. But let's step back and think about our own responses to overwhelming stress and pressure. We all have different tolerances and different skills, different strengths and limitations. Depending on the context, we can present in various ways um, to an observer. So sometimes under stress in a particular environment, that can produce a certain kind of behavior from us that might be annoying to an observer. But if we are placed under pressure in a different sort of environment, we may behave differently. It depends. So behavior, in my view, depends on the environment and also our capacity to handle said environment. Does that make sense? We need to understand root causes. For kids, their behavior is like smoke. The smoke is not so much the issue that we want to tackle. Sometimes it is, obviously, because smoke can be toxic. But in the long run, it makes more sense to address the thing that created the smoke. That's where the real root of the problem is. It's what is causing the friction that generates the fire that then builds smoke, right? So we need to search and look for we need to trace the smoke down to its origin. In my book, I talk about the problem of fit, the book that this concept is based off. Not my book, my course. It's called the Making Sense of Anxious Kids course, and spots are filling up, so I do encourage you to go and sign up for that. It's self-paced, and if you have questions, you ask questions in the course, and I will respond to those questions. So it's available now, and I invite you to go and check it out. There is a discount code. If you wait till the end of this episode, you can apply the discount code and you'll get a discount. All before Christmas. Wonderful. And you can gift the course to someone as well. Nothing says I passively aggressively. Nothing is as passive aggressive as sending someone a parenting course. But this is not a parenting course. It is a course to help people make sense of anxious kids, especially anxious kids who have problems managing their anxiety and their emotions because they're dealing with some sort of frictional tension that then leads to them acting out in a way that can be a bit intense and a bit annoying. In that course, I talk about the problem of fit. That's what I was talking about before. So it happens when the demands or expectations on a child exceeds their ability to handle them. And this is very true, as I alluded to before, for kids with emotional challenges or have a tendency or personality that's prone to feeling upset easily or stressed. Talk more about that in the course. For example, a child that might be more sensitive to noise, they might struggle more in a busy classroom. Or you might have a child with low task orientation. They have struggles regulating their attention. Neurodiverse kids. You might find it quite hard to complete long assignments, and then you add in noise sensitivity, and now you create a lot of friction, right? They're not able to handle those environmental demands because of their inherent strengths or weakness. Their inherent limitations. They haven't yet developed the skills to cope with those stresses. So then you ask yourself, well, is that child to blame for their so-called acting out behavior? No, of course not. And so this thinking in this way allows us to step back and actually become more curious about what is going on for them. It helps us to develop our empathy for these children. And I think it allows us to structure our thinking about how we're going to solve a problem. Because now we're thinking about their temperament, we're thinking about their developmental stage, and we're thinking about any underlying conditions like anxiety or ADHD or Asperger's, ASD, when assessing their ability to cope. So if you do get presented with some sort of behavior, what can you do in the heat of the moment? There are different things you can do, different protocols. Some I prefer over the others. The ones that I promote in the Meltdown Solution ebook, I call it the SAVE protocol. You apply the SAVE protocol when you are in the midst of a meltdown. So a meltdown is in full flight. By the way, you have to know in which part of the life cycle you're at, because that will dictate which protocol to use. Obviously, in the midst of a meltdown, you don't want to apply what I call the ABC method, where you try and pick apart what's going on. You want to understand the antecedents. You want to describe the behavior. Oh, Johnny, man, what's going on here? It sounds like you're doing this and that and this and that. It's not the time to do a lot of talking. Okay, the ABC method. That comes before or after a meltdown. But speaking of, once a meltdown has passed or a behavior has extinguished itself naturally, sometimes it can take a long time, by the way. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with this, where some kids, they go from 0 to 100 very quickly, and then it takes hours for their emotional turmoil to decay and dissipate. But after that, you do like an ABC analysis. That's a very basic way of analyzing, in the postvention period or prevention period. Very basic. I dig into some more advanced protocols in the ebook and also in my course, Making Sense of Anxious Kids. Go and get it. Go and do it. But ABC is very simple, very easy, and easy to apply, easy to remember, and it's a great way to start your analysis of what frictional forces might be leading up to so-called misbehavior, in inverted commas. If you can't see, I'm actually doing air quotes. Because kids, their behavior, as I said before, is influenced by what's going on in the environment, mixed with their limitations with being able to handle certain aspects of the environment. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Temperament. Temperament plays a huge part in a child's behavior. Temperament isn't something you can change greatly, but you can temper it, you can adapt it, you can modify temperament, the intensity of temperament. It refers to emotional patterns an individual might display in response to a stressor, an event, or a stimulus. It's different to personality. So the two terms are used synonymously and interchangeably, but I think it's important to have a good sense or some sense of the difference. So temperament is kind of like the style of clothing you might the type of clothing you might wear depending on the weather. For example, you have jackets, you have pants, you have shirts. But personality is your style of clothing. So for example, on a windy day, I'm going to put on an anorak or a windbreaker, something to break the wind. Break wind. If you're like me, you're quite practical. I have something from Macpac, whereas if you're someone else that I know, you might have like a Louis Vuitton, I don't know, crocodile skin jacket or something like that. I don't know. But they're both jackets, right? They do the same thing. So temperament speaks to the automatic response to the weather. So it's windy. I'm going to put on a jacket. If I wasn't the sort of person that had the temperament of wearing jackets in windy weather. Some people might be more like shirt wearers in windy weather. Their temperament is to put on a shirt. Some people's temperament is to just put on a t-shirt, right? I'm not like that. I put on a jacket. That's my immediate response to the weather. Temperament. My personality dictates what style of jacket I wear. Does that make sense? And of course, your personality can be molded over the years. Maybe after a number of years, maybe in the right environment or the wrong environment, someone might mold me to want to buy and wear Louis Vuitton jackets because I'm tired of MacPac jackets. I don't know, but it's still a jacket. My temperament stays the same. My personality can can be molded. It can change. So some kids are naturally more sensitive. Some kids are naturally more reactive. Some kids are naturally more impulsive. Understanding temperament helps us to predict how they might react in certain situations. And that allows us to do some pre-planning. There's a lot of what parenting is actually pre-planning, because in the heat of the moment, kids are just going to act how kids are going to act. That's why I keep saying you cannot predict, but you can prepare. Actually, I would go further and say you can't predict, but you should prepare. Once we understand a child's temperament and their triggers, how do we support them? So first and foremost, we need to start with the basics. In your environment at home, because there's not a lot that we can control in our world, but we can kind of control ourselves, and we have some control over our immediate environment. How we curate things in the environment, right? Kind of. Even that is something of an illusion, but I don't want to get into the philosophy of that. But you can kind of order your house, right? You've got some control over that. What I'm trying to say is that curating the environment means trying to make sure that we first understand our child's needs, and then we do our best to manufacture things in the environment that caters for their temperament. Now, Devin, aren't we just like preparing the road for the child instead of preparing the child for the road? Yeah, to an extent. But let me put this to you. Would you let your child climb Mount Everest at age 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15? No, I wouldn't. Some people maybe would. I think most people wouldn't. Right? I know that's a ridiculous comparison, but sometimes some environments feel very much like Mount Everest to our children. So this stuff is really key. Okay, to manage most meltdowns, it's about preparation. It's about understanding what the pressures, demands, expectations are on the child that creates friction. And it's about understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and then making both of them match. In the heat of the moment, I talk about, when you're in the midst of a meltdown, I talk about the SAVE protocol in the meltdown solution. In the Making Sense of Anxious Kids course, I talk about the Be Save OK protocol. Very cheesy, but hopefully it's memorable. But it just stands for B for breathe, S for give space and safety, A for acknowledge, assess, and then V for validate emotions, and O for giving options. This framework does help you and your children to feel heard, understood during emotional crises or distress. In the long term, we want to help kids develop the skills they need to manage their emotions and behavior. We want to teach them how to climb Mount Everest, right? We have to equip them with the skills they need in order to climb Mount Everest. We don't put them in front of Mount Everest straight off the bat. Yeah. So things like this can include like relaxation techniques, problem-solving skills, social skills. Now, just to reassure you, you can individually try and train your kids to upskill in these things, but adopting these mental models I talk to you about all the time. Just by you adopting them changes the way you approach situations. And then you are going to naturally teach your kids a lot of this stuff anyway, just because that's what parents naturally do. Just like adult birds teaching their chicks how to fly. Did they learn how to teach their kids how to fly? I don't think there's, flying school in birdland. They just know how to do it. How do they know how to do it? Well, it's because they have been programmed with a mental model to teach their kids how to fly. That mental model might be quite basic, but that's good because it means that it allows them to be creative. You can be creative with a certain rule set, like the protocols that I espouse all the time. I'm not very great at teaching relaxation skills or problem-solving skills or social skills for that matter. But if I have a certain set of mental models, I'm able to creatively come up with solutions myself that fits my situation and my children's situation in a more nuanced way without specifically thinking, I'm going to teach my kid relaxation skills. I'm going to teach my kid problem-solving skills. I'm going to teach my kid social skills. You don't have to be that prescriptive or directive. I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, one of my kids, she barges into the bedroom at 6 a.m. Get up, get up! And she sounds really upset. And we're like, what the heck is going on? I don't know what's going on. Obviously, she's kind of already in the midst of a meltdown. Not her fault. Not her fault. Something had happened. Don't know what that's going to be. From past experience, I've tried to work that out, and it just blows up in my face. So I adopt the Be Safe OK protocol, or the SAVE protocol. Just maintain safety, continuously assess, dynamically assess her mental state, her emotional state, validate emotions, and engage calmly with empathy. In order to do the V and the E, I need to understand, first and foremost, that there is some kind of friction going on for my kid. And it's producing smoke, some kind of behavior. So that helps me to keep calm and helps me to stay curious, helps me to stay connected and engaged. I mean, we never really worked out what the issue was. I think my wife did, actually, because she's smarter than me. But, adopting the SAVE protocol in the midst of a meltdown in that phase of the life cycle saved our butts. Eventually, we were able to get to a place, and it only took 5 or 10 minutes, miraculously. Usually it takes a lot longer if we're trying to use other protocols outside of that meltdown phase. So we just used the SAFE protocol, and it worked very well. Things calmed down, things settled. We could then have a talk about what was happening. Neurodiverse kids have very unique needs and challenges. So we need to be sensitive to that. We need to be sensitive to their sensitivity. We need to understand that they have certain requirements for sensory input and dulling. They have challenges with social communication, and they might struggle with executive function like planning and organization. So we need to adjust and approach our and we need to adjust our approach accordingly. A kid with ADHD, for example, might benefit from frequent breaks, movements, etc. While a kid with autism, they might need clear visual schedules and predictable routines, much more than the kid with ADHD. Very simplistic examples, because most kids on the spectrum of either have ADHD or autism. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot to digest here. Some key takeaways. I realize I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now. Number one, challenging behavior or misbehavior is a signal. It is smoke. It is not the problem. Always look for underlying causes. Number two, every child is unique. What works for one child might not work for another. Number three, trust is essential. Children are more likely to open up to us when they feel safe and understood. That's where the be safe, okay protocol comes in. Number four, focus on solutions, not blame. Work collaboratively with your child to develop strategies for managing their emotions and their behavior. And this will come more naturally if you just stick to the mental models. Be patient, be consistent, realize change takes time, it takes disciplined effort. If you don't take the time, if you don't apply disciplined effort, things will be a lot harder for you. Thanks for joining me today, my friends. If you're here, if you stayed till the end, thank you so much. This will work so much better for you if you absorb all the lessons here. And I invite you, do check out the course, Making Sense of Anxious Kids. The discount code for December 2024 is XMAS 2024. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go and get the course. Spots filling up fast. Go and do it. Yeah, great. For more information, just go to the website, huddlewisdom.com. By the way, if you do find this stuff helpful, I would be so grateful if you just paused, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us to expand our reach. And I'd be so grateful if you would do that for me. Thank you, my friends. All right, until next time, if I don't see you before Christmas, have a great Christmas. I hope you have a restorative break, and we will catch up very soon.